Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to Wildflower Woman. My name is Jess. I am your host. If you're new here, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. I am a witch. I am an astrologer. I am a woman. I am deeply passionate about uplifting and guiding other women in changing their lives, whether that be starting a new business, aligning to the work that they're already doing, or just finding themselves again, because we go through stages where we change or we lose ourselves and we need to come back to that. And that's what I do here at Wildflower Woman. You can find me on Instagram at a Wildflower Woman or Embodied Witchcraft, where I share exclusively things around witchcraft. Whereas Wildflower Woman is more about branding, personal branding, business branding, because I truly believe that it's more about self-expression than branding. Branding is a nice little packaged way to talk about it, but it's really about coming home to yourself, understanding yourself, who you are, who you want to be, where you want to go, how you best express yourself based on your astrological blueprint with the energies that you came in with and what your soul wants to grow towards. And a lot of cheerleading. I am the head cheerleader over there. I will always cheer for you. I want you to succeed. I want you to be happy. And there's sometimes a little tough love thrown in there. So welcome, welcome if you're new. So happy you're here. A couple things to know about me. I have raging ADHD of the hyperactive variety. So if this is your first podcast episode, I have actually today written down a few notes to try to keep me on track, but a side quest is one of my favorite things. We never know where we're going to end up. The other thing is that I am constantly channeling and connected to my spirit guides when I do these podcasts. So sometimes things will come through that want to be talked about that I had not planned. I always go where spirit takes me. So if you're cool with the woo and the practical, you definitely are going to belong here and have a great time. If the woo is weird for you, I would say give it a chance. I try to keep it pretty grounded. I try not to go too far off. And if I do, I like to try to ground it in every day, because I think there's no point in being completely untethered from the fact that we're human beings on this earth together, living life with all their plant and animal friends. All right, let's jump in. Welcome back. Hi. Spring has sprung over on my side of the planet. I spent so much time in the garden the past week, replanting some things, planting some new things, giving a lot of fertilizer and a lot of love and energy, and talking to my plants now that they're awake. I still speak to them when they're napping during the winter, but during spring it feels a little bit more two-sided versus one-sided. What I normally do is I talk about something a little witchy in the beginning. And in winter, I feel like I didn't do that as much, because for me in winter, my witch journey is much more introspective and it's more about the internal transformations. I feel like I really cycle with nature. That's something that I really identify with. So the winter periods is so much more internal. And I know a lot of us feel that way. A lot of us feel more inside ourselves, inside the buildings. There's a lot of internal stuff going on. But now that spring has sprung and they're out and the leaves are blooming and I'm starting to have some flowers, my beautiful Japanese cherry tree in the front of my house has the most gorgeous, gorgeous flowers all over it now. It's so beautiful. So I go out there and I hang out. And also, like, if you haven't talked to a tree, you're missing out. That shit slaps. Talking to trees is awesome. They're really good listeners. I made that joke yesterday, and I think I was the only person who laughed at it, but they are really good listeners. It's kind of a joke because, they're not going to, interrupt you, but energetically, you can really feel like a lot of grounding and release and calmness if you just go tell your problems to a tree, honestly. And there's a superstition in the witchcraft community that if you tell the trees, people who wronged you, they'll go after them or they'll protect you from them. So, you know, maybe you just want to talk to a tree because it's been proven scientifically to be good for your nervous system, or maybe you want to go tell them about how Karen in accounts has been pissing you off and see what the trees do about it. I don't know. Could be interesting. All right, coffee break. Okay. So let's just talk about something that I did this weekend for my plants that's really easy and helpful. It is an old witchcraft or old folklore. A lot of different cultures have different folklore things. I'm trying to connect more to my ancestry because I've been very cut off from it. And so one of the things I do, I've been looking up local folklore, well, not local, but to me, Slavic and Irish folk traditions and remedies and things like that, and do them through witchcraft practices. And so one of the things we have a problem with in our garden is slugs and lots of snails. And like, for example, our strawberries always get eaten every single year. And it's by mostly slugs, a little bit birds, mostly slugs. Also, the area where we live in, the soil is not very nutrient dense. We have to do a lot of fertilizing of the plants, and I like to try to live as much of a circular economy situation as I can. I would love to be zero waste. That's probably not going to be a reality, but what I do is try to use food waste for fertilizer. So one thing that I've been doing for many years is making compost tea. And this is a really easy way because if you want to make actual compost fertilizer, you have to have a whole setup, and it's a lot for a lot of people. A lot of us don't have, gardens or big spaces to do that. Although I believe that there is some sort of scale up or startup that created a fertilizing kind of trash bin situation. It's probably like $1 million, but you could look into it if you have $1 million. But an easy thing you can do is if you know what kind of plants you have, you can look up what kind of nutrients are good for them in the soil. Some plants really like acidic environments. So then you can find out which food waste you have that's acidic that you could turn into a compost tea or into an actual fertilizer. An example would be roses really like acidic environments. So I take coffee grounds and sprinkle them around the base of my rose bushes, and it just gives them extra nutrients. Some plants need a lot of potassium, so you could make banana water, which is what I do. I have a lot of potassium needing plants. So whenever we have bananas in the house and we eat bananas, instead of putting it in our compost bin, because we do compost just with the what's communa in English? Township, I think. Yes, city, whatever. They have bio composting, but I don't put it in there. Is the point. I put it in a big like jug of water, and I will put all of the banana peels in there. And then what happens is the water leaches out the nutrients from the banana peel, and then you can use that water as a potassium rich watering alternative to just straight up water. Another thing that you can add coffee grounds to it. So if you know that they like acidic and they like potassium, I think most plants would be fine with potassium. You could do that way, and you could do it for all your food waste. So you can like look at what kind of nutrients are in the food and what kind of plants you have, and make your own compost tea. And then I usually either boil water and pour it over so it like quickly leaches out the nutrients, or I'll just let it sit for a few days. I mean, I don't really mind that it's on my countertop in a jug, but if you do, you could put it in a dark place. And I just like chuck stuff in there that I know will be good. And then once it's like this murky color and you can see it's leached out a lot of stuff and the food has begun to like wilt or break down or whatever, then you can pour that over your plants and water them with that water. The one thing I did that. Also, this is probably going to be pretty gross for the people that are new to the woo or not really witchy, so cover your ears. But if you are a person who menstruates, you can also add your blood to the water or give your blood as offering to your plants, like as a ritual. It's good for the plants. There's lots of iron in it. If you're not grossed out by it, I think it's also a nice way to destigmatize the shame that comes around menstruation. Personally, because you shouldn't be grossed out by it. It's not a gross thing. It's a very natural occurrence and it's beautiful. So, anywho, you can do that. The one thing I did this weekend was I collect the eggshells throughout. Like, we eat a lot of eggs, and I have a little box, and I put all my eggshells in the box and I let them completely dry out. And then I take them and put them in my mortar and pestle and I smash the crap out of them till they're like very fine. I would say like, yeah, like dusty almost. And then I combine the eggshells with coffee grounds and I sprinkle that around the plants like my strawberries. And also as part of witchcraft, I put it around the perimeter of my fence as a protection. So let's start about the nutritional aspects and like the horticultural reasons for putting this down. So this is a very old remedy. Not only do the plants get calcium from the eggshells, which is why you want it really fine so it can absorb down into the earth, and then they get the other acidic things from the coffee, like the nitrogen and other micronutrients that it has into the soil, which helps the plants grow. It acts as a fertilizer, but it's a deterrent for slugs and other crawling pests like snails and stuff because it creates a barrier where they don't want to crawl over the eggshells because it's harmful to them. And also the coffee grounds. So they won't go on to that. Is it the most effective way? No, but I don't like to use killing things. My brain is very interesting today. What is the word for the killing things I'm thinking of? Everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I can't think of the word. Like the stuff that you put on your plants that kills the pests. Insecticide. Hello, there it was. Insecticide. I don't like to use that. I really try not to murder or kill anything, even if it is a pest. I think everything has a purpose here. So it's more about deterring them if possible. But the way that it works, if you want to do it as a witchcraft ritual, is, excuse me, I'm going to tell you what I do. And then, like everything I ever tell you with any sort of witchcraft or personal growth or anything or your life in general, if you know me, you know this is like my number one rule. Please don't do exactly what I do. Make it your own, make it what feels right for you. But what I do is when I'm grinding up the eggshells, I do it in a clockwise motion to start off with. And I ask them to protect the house, protect my yard, and then when I will add some coffee and I will start going counterclockwise, which is a ban. So clockwise is bringing something in, counterclockwise is banishing something out. And then I will ask the coffee to repel any people or energies with intentions that are not for our highest good. So I do that and I really focus on putting all my energy into this. So I'm doing it nice and slow and like intentional, like a witch stirring her cauldron, And then I take a oyster shell that I have that I use, just because I like it. You could use a spoon, you can use your hand, you can drizzle it from the cup. I just like the ceremonial. I like a little bit of pomp sometimes. So I use the oyster shell. I think it's cute. And I'll walk the perimeter of my house and I go in the points of a circle. So I personally go north, east, south, and west and walk the perimeter. And I sprinkle the grounds. And as I do that, I say something, whatever comes in that moment. It's never the same for me. I don't think I've ever used the same exact thing twice, except for maybe like the ending where I say, as I will it, so may it be, or something like that. Otherwise, I kind of just let it flow through. But a lot of times it's always, I mean, in this case, it's always centering around protecting the garden and the house and the people in it from any ill will or bad intention. And then I just walk the perimeter and I do that. And I kind of visualize it creating like this energetic, opalescent kind of barrier around it. And that's kind of how I do it. I think it's a everyday, I'm an everyday magic babe. Like I do like doing bigger rituals and ceremonies at certain times when it feels called for, but I do this mundane magic like just every day. That's part of my lifestyle. And I think that's where I actually see the most magic if I'm honest. Like the bigger transformational stuff, like I usually personally do that more for like a release situation, like when I need to release an energy that I've been holding on to. That was one I just did. Oh, I can talk about Bealtaine a little bit. Or to bring something in. And I can always feel that. It's not that I can't feel it, but I feel like the mundane magic is where my wonder and my whimsy lives. And I love wonder and whimsy. And I think we don't have enough of it. So yeah. Anyway, does some stuff. Let's talk about Bealtaine real quick because we just had Bealtaine or Beltane is the anglicized version. I'm purposely calling it Bealtaine because that's how it started, and that's what it's called. Beltane is the anglicized, colonized version of it. So just FYI, if that calls to you and you would rather use the original name, then you can call it Bealtaine. Coffee break. Okay. So Bealtaine is one of the 8 Sabbats on the Wheel of the Year. It is a cross-quarter holiday. It just means it's between 2 of the seasonal harvest holidays. And this one was marking the threshold or the doorway, basically the beginning of summer. So it's a fire festival. Traditionally, like all of the Wheel of the Year, there is agricultural aspect to it. So this one, I've really been, like I said, I've been trying to connect to the different ancestry that I have, and one of them is Irish. It's a very strong one in my bloodline. I've always felt very drawn to Ireland. So I wanted to do a bigger celebration for Bealtaine this year because I haven't done it. I've normally celebrated like the big 4 on the Wheel of the Year, the 4 big Sabbats. And I wanted to get a little bit more into it. So I did a little bit more research this year on Bealtaine. And one of the things I found out was that they would have 2 big bonfires and they would walk the cattle through it. So if you didn't grow up near a bunch of farms, this was something I already knew because my friend owned a dairy farm. But like basically, they have to move. If you go by a field and you see cows there, you probably think like, oh, that's where the cows graze. And they do. But one thing they do is they have to move the cows. Otherwise, like it depletes the grass and the biodynamic area and all this other stuff gets messed up. So in order to like rest a pasture, they'll move them. What they would do is they would move them from the pastures from winter into the new pastures where they would be for the summer. And so they would walk them through the smoke of these 2 bonfires with the belief that just like many other cultures use smoke cleansing, that the smoke would protect them and banish anything that would cause them to, get sick or to lose cattle or something. So it was like a cleansing and a blessing ritual. So I've always wanted a fire pit fire kind of freaking scares me, if I'm honest, but I'm also like super into it. Like I love it, but I'm also terrified a little bit of it. And that's probably for the best, right? That's probably healthy. So we got a fire pit and we did a fire, and during the day, so it's celebrated technically the evening from dusk until dawn of well, this year it was the 30th of April to the 1st of May, which is when they tend to celebrate it. Although neo-pagans and some other groups celebrate it at different times, that is the traditional celebration time. So the night before we did I did some releasing kind of stuff. I was writing down the things that I don't want to take with me. I was coming up with a ritual that I wanted to do in order to release it. Kind of my own little spell, what felt right in that moment, and making some dessert. And then the day of, we went and I took the kids to the forest and we collected a ton of dandelions. And we sat on the lawn and we created some dandelion crowns and pretended we were having like a little picnic with the fairies. I made some lavender syrup earlier in the year out of the lavender from my garden, and we had lavender lemonade. It was really delicious. We had some sandwiches. I also had a friend over the day before, I forgot, to bead some wildflower necklaces. Beading is also a part of the tradition, or weaving. And so we did some weaving of our intentions into the bead magic, which was cool. So yeah, that was kind of what we did for Bealtaine. I like to connect to the ancestral stuff behind it, but then I kind of like to make it my own. And if you have heard nothing from the past, like, I don't know, 15 minutes or whatever, that's how I live my life. I like doing things that way, and I encourage people to do it as well. So we did a few traditional things, and then we did a few non-traditional things. And what I ended up doing was a releasing ritual with the fire. And I did a mix actually. So I had written down all of the things that I was letting go of and releasing now that I felt I had processed through a lot of them. And I just want to basically honor that I've done the work. I think this is maybe something just quick to touch on, that we see a lot of these releasing rituals and things from full moon. And I think those are fantastic things to do when you feel called to do it. If you don't feel called to do something, you don't have to honor every full moon or every new moon. You just need to do what your energy feels called to. I think a little bit of the problem, and this leads nicely maybe into my next topic. I think a little bit of the problem with those releasing rituals is the work that goes into them is not acknowledged. And it's almost this quick fix of like, if I write this down on a paper and I burn it in the full moon, I don't have to worry about it anymore. But there's no work has been done to deal with that energy. So what I did was I worked through a lot of stuff this past year. It's been a tough year. I've worked through a lot of things. So I acknowledged and honored all of that. I wanted to be grateful for the transformation that has happened, the change that has happened. And I wrote all of the things down that had come up around that. And then I folded it into thirds and I put it into the fire and danced the energy out, like really also put on some music and just danced weird and moved my arms like all over the place, just letting the energy do whatever it wanted to do, and watch that paper burn. And then once the fire had cooled down and there was no more hot ash, although I did burn myself because I thought it'd be fun to play with a stick like a wand, and I burned myself. So don't play with fire. But once the ash had cooled down, I put ash on my hands, and then I went and ritualistically washed it off, finally acknowledging the complete release of everything else. And I think I love doing rituals like that. I think they're very good from a psychological perspective for your subconscious. It does do something to actually feel that letting go, right? I think it's really good energetically as well, because you're letting your energy flow out and you're getting rid of something instead of holding on to it. And I also just really feel like there is a lot of magic in releasing things. Um, but I do feel that there's an oversimplification that I currently see in this space of, you don't have to do any of the work. You just have to write it on a piece of paper and burn it, and it's done. And it's kind of a larger problem that I see in how we live our lives these days. And I've been ranting about this so much because now that I've started my business and I'm teaching people the method of transformation and reclaiming of your voice and finding yourself and your self-expression and how you really want to show up and feel confident doing that, I'm seeing a lot more tendency to the fact that we as a species are constantly trying to take the easy way, which I don't think is always a problem, but we've overdone it. We've completely oversimplified what it means to be here having this human experience. And so you've probably heard the word spiritual bypassing before, where it's just like, an example would be someone goes, "Oh, everything happens for a reason." And then you're just supposed to get over it and accept that everything happens for a reason and not have any feelings around what happened. And that's just such bull poop. Hold on, coffee break. That's just such bull poop because the fact of the matter is, my throat chakra is closing up. This is going to be a good one. Uh, Whenever your body is doing something, it's because you're working through some energy. There's something in me that feels fear maybe about talking about this. So this is great. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So um, we've oversimplified life so much and we continue to do that. And we outsource all of that work to everything outside of ourselves that we're not investing any work in ourselves. And when things get hard, whether it's our own transformation or external transformation, we back away from it. If there's not an easy way to handle it, we're like, oh, it's too hard. We literally have no resilience. Like, there are a lot of resilient people, don't get me wrong. But where do you put your resilience? Because most of us don't put it into ourselves. We put it into, chasing something that we think we need for acceptance or for love or for success as society deems it. And we're super resilient at doing that. We will take 1,000 beatings for that goal. But when it comes to our own happiness, our own fulfillment, when stuff gets hard, we're like, oh no, no, thank you. And the thing is that, like, when you're scared of something, when something is hard, 99% of the time, it's because there is something in there for you that you need, but that part of you that doesn't want to deal with it doesn't want to deal with it. So you have to consciously choose that you're going to take the more difficult path. This is such a nuanced topic as well, and it's going to be difficult for me to stay 100% in one vein with it because I do like to go down that rabbit hole. But there's a difference between something feeling constantly impossible and you're constantly hitting obstacles and nothing is working out and you're completely drained, and something just being difficult but feeling rewarding every time you overcome it. Like, you have to know the difference in that, because one thing is kind of maybe the universe being like, this is not for you or not for you right now, and you're just trying to push something that's not going to happen. The other one is, this is for your growth. So the rituals, all these things that we do, the end transformation that we're being sold, right? All of that comes with work. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to this. Like, I know now not to call it a trad wife, because it's been explained to me that that comes with a lot of problematic conservative values about women. And that's not at all where I stand. But this, like, homesteading, I think is a nicer word, maybe, right? Life. I think that appeals to me so much. The using of our hands, the spending time on something. I mean, I beaded this necklace with my friend and we were talking about how freaking long it takes to do it. And I actually really enjoy that because A, it makes me appreciate the work that other people do with fast fashion and this easy production and mass production that we have. We do not appreciate things anymore. And that leads to this overconsumption. I'm up on my soapbox right now. It leads to the overconsumption of things. And we don't value work anymore because everything's so easy to get. And again, that's that simplification, right? So I think I'm really drawn to things that take time and effort, but when you do them, not only for a woman's standpoint, when you use your hands, your brain releases oxytocin. I think that's stereotypically why women have been drawn to more handwork things. Like, of course, there's a patriarchal influence that I'm not going to disregard that. But, a lot of women are drawn to like handwork and things like that, or doing something with their hands or kneading dough or whatever, any kind of like hand stuff, any kind of hand stuff. Also, just wink, wink, you know what I'm saying? Releases oxytocin, which is a pleasure hormone. And that's actually what makes us feel more fulfilled than dopamine. And there was a study that just came out on this, that this dopamine mining and the things that people are chasing dopamine all the time, like, that has led more women to feel worse because dopamine is not the like long-term fulfilling hormone that our brain releases that works for us. That's more men. But as usual, science is tested primarily on men with very few women subjects. And at extremely high levels of dopamine, it actually starts to deplete the oxytocin in your system, which makes you feel worse. But that has to be a lot of dopamine. Anyway, but doing things with your hands makes you appreciate the work that goes into things more. And I also think doing hard things like that and things that take time and patience, they build character God, I feel like I really just sounded like my dad there, but I agree with him on that. Like, I've been doing a lot of things that I find extremely challenging and extremely hard. And when I first started doing them, my first instinct was to quit. And my guides were like, no, you're resilient. You can do this. It's just hard, but you're just used to everything being so easy for you and you get in this comfort zone. And so when we get in this comfort zone of like, I know what I'm doing, everything's easy. I don't have to worry about this because this other program is handling it. I don't have to think through these problems because I can just ask Google or I can just ask AI. I don't have to understand myself better because I can talk to AI about it and it can tell me about myself. Like, we've taken all the work out of ourselves. And this oversimplification has led to a lot of different issues because at the end of the day, no one is feeling better. If this simplification of our lives was supposed to make things easier for us and make us feel better about our lives, why does no one feel better? Now, I'm not going to take out the fact that everything kind of feels like a dumpster fire right now in a global perspective. However, if you really sit down and look at your life and think about it, did adding any of these things actually make you feel more fulfilled or feel happier? I won't say that it didn't necessarily make it easier in some ways. Like, if you have an ordering service that brings you meal boxes, like I did that for a while, like, of course, there's an ease in that. That's absolutely an ease. But I also feel like there's a trade off that for me personally, I'll speak from my own experience here because I'm not judging anybody. It's just a perspective to consider. It was almost like I was not living my own life anymore. I was taking myself out of my life. I mean, for me personally, I enjoy meal planning. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy baking. I enjoy learning new things. And so when I was outsourcing all these parts of myself just because I could or because I was told I should because it's easy, it was like, what's the point of? And I was having those thoughts. I mean, not from like a life ending perspective, but I was really thinking, like, what is the point? Like, I'm not living. And that's kind of a lot where the journey started for me in my transformation was coming back to understanding what am I not doing enough of that makes me happy? What's going on inside of me that needs to be resolved? What this end transformation that I want to get to, this feeling of happiness with my life and whatever, I have to go through hell to get there. Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it because that's the thing is it's not easy. And everybody will get through it. Millions and millions of people have done it. Billions in the whole history have done this. It's not like it's one person who can do it, right? It's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's not easy. But like when you get through it, it's amazing. I mean, it is really amazing. And I'll say, like, where I thought I was going when I started the transformation is not where I want to go anymore, or at least not in the exact same way. Like, because you change, you can't even see that future. It's better than you imagined in so many different ways because it gets more and more aligned with who you are the more you do the work. But it just feels like everybody's just so oversimplified everything that they're not resilient. They don't want to put in the work on themselves anymore. They want someone else to do everything for them. And I get it because the hard stuff, like, you don't want to do the hard stuff. That's hard. But I always just feel like I really want to push people that it's worth it. And sometimes you have to do the hard stuff. That's where the growth is. If you stay in your comfort zone, you stay where you are. If you want to grow, you want to do something different, like the people that you're looking at and going, that looks nice, wish I could have it, but it's like, well, you can. You can have a version of that that's right for you for sure. And you can do all of that stuff, but you have to want to make the changes. But I feel like when you've done the work and you start to come through, like, I've always called it Persephone's journey because it feels like going into the underworld because your underworld is your subconscious. It's all this stuff down here, right? You have to work through it and get it out and transform it. Like, that's like all of the alchemy, all of the good stuff happens down there. Like, I was thinking about this the other day, and witchcraft, we always say as above, so below, right? And we're always talking about, the duality of life and death and all this other stuff, right? And if it were me, actually, I would have said as below, so above, just because I really feel that the deep seated stuff that we hold on to, the grief, the pain, the anger, the hurt, the feelings of not being good enough, like whatever you're working through, they're all there in the underworld. And they have the massive potential to be alchemized into like absolute gold for your life, absolute gold for your purpose and what makes you feel fulfilled. But you have to be willing to do that journey into the underworld. And a lot of times people think the underworld is really, really scary. Like whatever's in your subconscious or in your past is like, I don't want to go back there. That's horrible. And as a person who works with people with trauma and has trauma herself, I fully get that. I will say from my experience and from the people that I've worked with, not anyone has ever had an experience that they were not perfectly able to work through because our subconscious is always protective of us. So it's not going to put something in front of us that we cannot handle. There have been times where I felt like I cannot do this. I cannot handle this. And guess what? I handled it and I did it. It takes support a lot of the times. Doing the journey by yourself is hard. And that's why I really feel like community is extremely important and why I try to build community. And I know it's really vulnerable. And I'm going to do another episode on this other topic of community and why it's really important. I want to write an article on it first because it's been sitting with me and I want to write an article. But if you can find a coach or a guide or therapist or multiple, a therapist and a coach, a therapist and a friend, like we've isolated ourselves so incredibly much. Again, I'll talk about this later, but let's just have a little sneaky peek. We've, especially as women, isolated ourselves so much. And it's largely, in my opinion, a protective mechanism because when we were in the covens, it was unsafe. When we were in large groups of women, it's unsafe. We're constantly attacked for being in groups. So we become really solitary creatures. We carry everything ourselves. But back when there were matriarchies, back when there were different types of civilizations that were not patriarchal and definitely not capitalistic, that's where that saying, it takes a village, comes from. You were never expected to do everything on your own. When you were grieving, people were grieving with you. They were taking care of you. They were sitting with you. From my Jewish culture, from my grandmother's side, like when someone passes, you sit Shiva. People come over and just sit with you and bring you food while you grieve. And I think that's really beautiful. And it's something that a lot of the white cultures, we don't have that. And then just in general as women, we just do everything alone and we struggle through it alone and we don't want to be a burden. And because we've been so demonized, attacked, restricted, oppressed, we also don't want to be seen as weak. So we're hyper individual about everything. And it's so much to our own detriment and to the detriment of women as a whole. Because now that we're all it feels like we're all kind of noticing a wake up among a lot of women who are just fed up and tired and want something else. And now that we're all noticing that, we really need that community. And that's another thing is that community takes effort. Um, it does. And I've been trying to build communities for a long time with varying degrees of success. But the one thing that I've noticed with every single community is that people want the idea of community and they want the connection, but they're not always fully bought into what it takes to build that community. Because it's not just a meetup once in a while or having a fun event. I mean, it can be those things, but the communities I'm talking about, the true communities, are support. It's scaffolding. It's witnessing other people in their pain, in their happiness, in their joy, in their grief. It's all of that, right? It's reflecting that back to each other. It's supporting each other, counseling each other, actually showing up for each other, even if our energy doesn't feel like it that day. Like there's this thing in the spiritual world of like, my energy's not feeling this today. And it's like, yes, but you've made a commitment and sometimes your energy is not up for it. Unless you're really, really out of it, in my opinion, you need to show up. That's what community is. It's a commitment. And I think we really, really need that. It's super crazy important, especially as we hopefully head into this new era that everybody's talking about where things are going to change. We have to have community with each other. That makes us stronger. If you're a solitary witch, now I'm speaking to my witches or anyone interested in it, but if you're a solitary witch and you do magic by yourself, which most of us are, most of us do, it's powerful. It's amazing to call that energy back to yourself and feel that within yourself. That's incredibly powerful. But if you have never sat in a circle with other women and raised energy, you have not felt collective power of women. And if you've ever gone to like a protest where it's mainly women, for example, you can feel that collective energy. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's what we're missing. That's what they're scared of. That's what we have to call back. And it starts with you doing it for yourself first. I'll say that. And so putting in that effort into yourself is one of the most integral things that you can do to start making changes in your life, which ripples out into changes of other people. And it really starts at your core You decide that you're ready for change and you're going to put the work into it, even though you understand it could be difficult at times, but it's equally joyous. For as low as the lows can be, the highs are even higher. Okay. Life is about duality. Life is a spectrum. You cannot be just living in one. Otherwise, that's just straight up escapism or depression or whatever. Like, you have to embrace the full nature of the spectrum of being a human being here. That's why you're here, why you came here, in my opinion. Anywho, so you start by doing that within yourself, saying, I am fed up. I'm done. I am going to commit to making these changes. I'm going to put in the work, even when it's hard, even when I'm feeling down. I'm going to reach out to my sisters, to my people, to my community, and tell them when I need help, when I need to just grab a coffee and chat, when I want to send a 10-minute voice message to somebody just to vent or have a call, whatever that means to you and your community. You commit to doing that. And when you start to make those changes and you start to come back to yourself and remove all the societal conditioning and all of the stuff that you feel you had to do, I like to use the phrase of like all the ways you had to octopus yourself into a situation to be fitting in or belonging and be safe. You start to remove all of that stuff. It has an insane ripple effect in the energy around you. So it's like little, I don't want to get stopped at the TSA by using words. Let me choose a new one than the one that just came up. Like, as if the stuff that I say everywhere else is not already inflammatory enough, but it's like little landmines or something. Like, when yours ignites from inside of you, let's use a wildfire. That's better. It's like little sparks inside of you. And so when you spark yourself, right, and your fire starts to grow, it sets fire to the people around you. I cannot explain to you how many people around me have gone through transformations after I started going through my transformation. And that's not to be like, oh, I transformed everybody, I'm so amazing. It's just how it works. It works with everybody all around the world, and then they spark transformations in the people in their circles and so on oh, excuse me, and so on and so forth. That's just how it works. It's a wildfire, so it spreads and it has to start somewhere. So if you're like the one person in your family who's even considering this, maybe you're the spark. Maybe you're the beginning of the wildfire. Like, you just don't know, but if you're feeling called to it, you should definitely start to look into it. And I always recommend to do the work because it's never as hard as you think it's going to be. You will absolutely always get through it. And we have to stop trying to simplify everything so much that we completely bypass the lessons we're meant to learn, the resiliency that we're meant to build within ourselves so that we can do more and more. And I don't mean more and more as in the capitalistic patriarchal way of like hustle culture, but more and more like I can do this thing that seems hard to me because I want to do it because it's amazing. It's going to be amazing for me on the other side. And I know it's going to be hard, but I've handled so many things now that I'm not worried about it. And like I started running again. And the simple reason I freaking hate running, but the reason, well, I don't hate it, but it's a love-hate relationship. One of the reasons I started doing running again is because I had forgotten that I can do hard things. I went through a period where I forgot that I'm super capable of doing hard things. And I was doing a lot of mindset stuff around like, when's the time that you didn't do it and you didn't fail, like all this stuff. And that's helpful. But like I'm an embodiment person. I needed a body situation to show me. So I started running because I find running really difficult. But every time I meet a new goal or I do the run, even when I don't feel like it, it builds a resiliency in me that even though I didn't want to do this, I did it. So stop taking the easy way out of everything. Things that simplify your life so you can focus on the stuff that really matters, do that stuff. That's the stuff you simplify. But don't simplify your transformation and your life so much that you completely stop living it for yourself. Okay. I'm quickly going to touch on raising our frequency because I had a listener request around that. So this listener request was saying that they want to connect to their guides and they've tried a lot of these different meditations and things like that where you get into a trance theta state situation and then you go and you quote unquote meet your guides in this state, right? You meet the energy and it's not working. And so she was touching on you know raising your vibration and if she's low energy, like how does she get the high energy and all this other stuff. And so I wanted to quickly touch on this just because I think it's something that I disagree with a lot in the psychic world, in the spiritual world. So if you don't know, I'm also a psychic and I do tarot and stuff, which I'm going to do a card at the end here, like I usually do. High vibration, low vibration as like a quantum physics, actual energetic situation, 100% true, right? Sound healing, 100% true. Like We know that there's different vibrations of things. Do you need to be at a certainly very high vibration to connect to your guides? I don't personally have that experience. Most of the time when I have connected deeply to my guides, it's actually been in times where I've been very sad or grieving or sobbing. That's when they actually show up very strong for me. So I don't think it's my experience that you cannot connect to them if you're sad, or the low vibrational energies that people talk about a lot of the times are also ways that people talk about it so that they can discriminate or be judgy or be spiritual bypassing. Because you probably heard somebody be like, this person is so low vibration, or I didn't like their energy vibe. Like I didn't get along with their energy. They were too low vibration. And I think a lot of the times what that really is like you and that person just don't get along. Or in some cases, you're spiritually bypassing. And so them having anger towards something makes you uncomfortable, especially if it's against you, right? But there is no such thing as like a low vibrational emotion. Emotions are just information. Emotions are emotion. Can they affect your vibration? Yeah, they can affect your energy, of course, but they in themselves are not low vibrational. This is, you choose if this resonates with you. This is just my perspective. For me, I describe it more as openness. So, also, by the way, a lot of people, and I think that this might be based more in, again, this Christianity lens of things, but some people feel like if you're low vibrational and you try to connect to energies, you're going to be connecting to low vibrational spirits, such as like dark spirits or trickster spirits or whatever. But I, again, have not had that experience. I have definitely felt some energies that I did not want to connect with, and I just didn't. And I said, no, you need to leave. And then they've left. But I've been in different energetic spaces in terms of higher or lower or what kind of emotional state I was in uh, when that happened. So I don't think that that has to do with it. And I also don't think of things as inherently good or bad. Like I work with Loki, for example, who a lot of people I think would think is bad, but I've never had that experience with him. So I don't think of things as inherently good or bad. I guess that's a good thing to think of. It's just if you want to work with those energies, and the way that they work with you is also important. I can talk about that at a different time. But I think it's more about being open, and opening yourself up can be really hard. That's probably part of the biggest obstacle. So first of all, let me say that your guides are always talking to you. We just sometimes have this predisposition about what we think that should look like. So if it's talking, if it's seeing them, if it's them speaking directly to us, or like feeling them in a certain way, like sometimes we have these ideas of how we think they're going to show up and how they're going to talk to us, and that's not it. So you do have to stay open in terms of your awareness. An easy way I always recommend to get started is to ask them for a sign and then stay open to how you get that sign, because that's also information about how they're going to connect with you. My guides, for example, have a really good sense of humor. So like they can communicate to you in like kind of funny ways, right? And then that gives you a little bit of idea of your personality of your guides, right? So they can have information there, but just don't try to pigeonhole them into a certain way, because they'll always try to get to you through the path of least resistance. So whatever is easiest, they'll use. A lot of times they use my youngest daughter. Like I'll ask for a certain phrase or something, and then she'll talk to me and say that phrase. So, and she's very connected, or my husband as well. So just stay open to how you get it. And I would say you are definitely communicating with them. You probably just aren't aware of it, especially because if you think it's going to be someone else's voice in your head, a lot of the times it's not. It's your voice, but it's like, and like mine's always kind of like, I'm just gesturing to the back of my head, but it's kind of like to the right back of my head, almost sounding like it's not quite in my head. It's almost like a little bit outside my head, but it's my voice. It's just the wording is usually a little bit different. Like it's not the way that I would speak, cadence or wording wise. That's one thing. The other thing is, so I think it's more about being open, and being open is quite hard because we go through stuff throughout life that makes us close off our heart, and the heart is the bridge. That's really where we connect. And so if you are feeling like you can't connect, try doing some like heart opening work. See if that helps. You really have to be vulnerable to connect. So you need to feel like you're protected energetically. So if you don't know how to protect your energy, you probably do a couple meditations or do a course or do something that makes you feel good about protecting your own energy. And then from there, you want to make sure that you're just focusing on opening up. A lot of times we imagine kind of going upwards because we imagine our guides like being up above us in some way, which is fine visually and for an understanding perspective. That's pretty clear, right? But you maybe just want to imagine like almost opening up your energy. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. You have to find with what resonates with you. Like I've worked with people before and I think everybody's always had a different way that resonates for them. For me, I like to kind of imagine that my energy turns into almost like a steam or a mist, and it spreads outward from my body, almost like little droplets of steam going out. And then I see the energy from my guides as another steam coming in, and they kind of begin to blend, like all those droplets kind of blend together. And that's how I do readings. That's how I connect to my guides. That's how I connect to other elemental spirits and higher energies and people's loved ones whenever they come through. That's how I feel that's the way that I can connect. And I can feel when my energy connects because it gets like a kind of dizzy-ish um, feeling whenever I've connected until it calms down again. So it's like a momentary, and then I'm cool again. That's how I connect. Some people imagine almost like a flower opening or a sun shining down on them. Other people like an egg, kind of like cracking an egg open, removing that shell or opening the egg out or opening it. Like you have to find the kind of way that works for you to think about it. You can also think of it as like vibrational waves going out and connecting. But for me, it's not about being high vibrational or low vibrational in order to connect. You don't have to sit there and do 55 meditations every single day to try to raise your vibration. Like, should you do meditation a little bit every day for your own mental health, well-being, and nervous system? Sure, absolutely. And will you get information from your guides? Probably. Yeah. But you don't have to do it because you're not high vibrational enough. I think that kind of annoys me when I hear teachers talking to people as if they're not high vibrational enough. And because I've encountered that quite a bit of like, oh, if you want to connect with angels, you're going to have to raise your vibration because you're not high vibrational enough. And it's so elitist and hierarchical and ick. And that's not my experience. I don't think it works that way. So, all of that being said, if you want to connect to anything, just work on feeling good and protected in your own space and your own energy because you do need to have that. All right, let's pull a card for today. I have with me my herbal astrology one. It's a lovely mix of my astrology love and my plant love. Let's see. Woo! Oh, we got one. What are we? Oh no, I gotta go get it off the floor. Hold on. Ooh, all right. We got ginkgo. Hey guys, let's celebrate. I kind of stayed on topic today. That wasn't too bad. Go me. I still yapped forever in a day, but it was on topic. Hey. Moving on up in the world. That's a breakthrough. Okay, so the dawn of a new mind, new ideas, visionary thinking, mental clarity, and resilience. Perfect. I do this every single episode. Oh my God, this card is so perfect for what we were talking about. I won't read you the backgrounds of ginkgo biloba. But I will tell you that it is ruled by Mars and Uranus. Um, the sword of truth held by the hand of God rises from the clouds, signaling a moment of breakthrough. This double-edged sword is encircled by a golden crown, symbolizing the victory of transcendence over illusion. Both ginkgo and raven are ancient guardians of Earth, both symbolizing the strength and resilience required to protect the ethereal realm, the source of magic. If ginkgo has appeared in your spread today, you are about to experience a total breakthrough, a revolutionary change in consciousness. Bring the light of dawn to the ongoing cycles of darkness within yourself or those experienced on Earth. Stay dynamic and fluid and don't allow negativity to cloud your judgment. Sweet. Love that. Let's see. Do we have time for a tarot? I was going to do a tarot. Nothing intuitive came through with that one today. I think that they just wanted that message. The breakthrough coming. I hate collective readings like for an individual person because I don't really do that. So I think it's just more about talking about the fact that you want to embrace the dark, have the breakthrough, dawn of new ideas, all of that. Stay tuned for my episode on what it means to be part of a community and why we need it to combat the patriarchy. Okay, may I have one tarot card for today? Oops, there we go. The 10 of Cups indeed. How about it? That ties in nicely to the card we just had. Yeah, so there's definitely like a completion of a cycle that is happening right now in terms of, I think breakthrough just keeps coming through. I feel like that's like a really, I feel like for some of you, there's probably an ending of a cycle that's coming out with a good, oh my God, my intuitiveness is making my brain stop. Hold on, let me just sit with it for a second and let words come to me. Okay, so some of you are going to start to see the actual fruits of your labors as came through. So you're ending a cycle of the hardship, and you're ending a cycle of the difficult work that I've been talking about, and you're actually going to start to see the result from that. Like what went into that is going to now show up, and it's going to be a time of celebration. Also for your inner child, it feels like there's some inner child stuff coming through here as some sort of reconciliation of the inner child, something with your inner child, and joy. And you finally get to kind of just relax and sit back and enjoy with the work that you've done. So that's a message that's coming through there. And also the other thing is of hope. So there's a message of maybe it's not the completion of a cycle for some of us or for some of you, but it's more that you finally start to see the hope in the situation. You're starting to get a rosier outlook on life. And that's also part of a breakthrough. And again, it feels like, again, that's tied to something with the inner child. So something's shifted where you're starting to feel like it's not all doom and gloom and there is light. And to be just super practical, that could just be if you're in the northern hemisphere, because the light is finally returned. You actually start feeling like yourself again. But it does feel a little bit more like you've been through some sort of inner work or inner transformation. And so your inner child and as just celebrating the fact that there's hope now and there's a different way of looking at things and actually seeing the beauty around you, looking up and seeing the good things that are going on around you. Okay, cool. So that's it for today. Like always, I forgot to tell you that I would love if you would rate the podcast if you liked it. If you didn't like it, zip it. And follow the podcast, subscribe so you can stay up to date. I have another episode next week. It is a guest episode coming out, and we talk about deconstructing from religion and finding your faith again. And you can follow A Wildflower Woman on Instagram. My website is in the show notes as well. I will be doing another round of the program that I'm doing now, the Wildflower Woman program. I have 10 women doing it now. It's going really well. I'm going to do a new round. I want to say June, but I'm not tied to it. Let's see. But if you're interested in doing the program or doing the pre-recorded version where you can do it self-paced, head over to the website and sign up for the list because I will announce when that's ready, when it's available. So I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you for being here. I love you all. Bye.